Going for streetcars. They're going to approve a couple of the first of what they say will be many more streetcar routes. Are we going to look back on this someday and say that this was, you know, an embarrassment and a money pit, or do we need to be multimodal the way they keep telling us?
We'd be multimodal without the streetcars. You can use rapid bus transit and you can have dedicated lanes. I think that's where we needed to go, because you can use the existing fleet. You just change exactly how you would channel these folks into a different lane.
Why do you think we need? Why do you think they're differentiating on saying no? It's got to be streetcars.
Yeah, I think there's an illusion that this is going to create some kind of economic benefit for the downtown area. I think it's the wrong decision. I agree with what Carlton Souls yesterday said, that if we look at it from top down, the federal government all the way down to the city government, we've got to start curtailing our expenditures. This is all predicated on the federal match, and they don't have the money. It's they're taking money from an entity that is essentially bankrupt, and I think that all of our governments at every level, whether it be the state or the local levels, we need to quit relying on federal match money. We're going to have to fend for ourselves for the next decade.
Yeah, but there'd be zero. You'd never have this without that. I mean, all of these cities that have it now wouldn't have been able to get it without those DOT grants. And I mean, you can say we need to stop doing it, but you know, Carlos, once people get in power and they find out they can go to that spigot and turn it on and off, it becomes irresistible.
Yeah, to me it kind of seems like for council people or the people that were involved in trying to get this passed through at the local level, to the taxpayer it'll probably end up being something that we don't even use, or it'll be a waste of money. But to them, it's their stepping stone in the minor leagues to get them up to the next level, because most of these people have political ambitions.
So is it a vanity project, Gilbert? I mean, is it something they can stand in front of and say, I did this?
I think there are a couple of things that one is this idea that we're one of the few big cities that doesn't have something like this. So we, you know, it's almost a sense of, you know, our reputation, our image. But I think a lot of this is trying to, instead of addressing the need that we have, instead of, you know, the transportation need that we really have is the north end of the city, but instead of addressing that problem, we're really trying to kind of create something for the city that our city leaders want San Antonio to become. They want to invigorate the urban core, so they're trying to create something that they think will make that happen. And when I think of past examples of that, I think of something like the Alamo Dome, which was, I think, you know, let's build something to kind of help downtown become what we want it to become. And I don't think that worked out too well. So
I thought it was ironic that the very same day that Viana Davila, your old colleague from Express News, wrote the story about the streetcar vote, she also wrote a story, she had another byline, same paper, about the clipboard study that they're doing up at 1604 and 281. Now, honestly, who needs a study? I mean, who doesn't already know that we need more lanes yesterday up there? So they're studying something that's obvious. They're building something, or deciding to build something that's not obvious. Here's Reed Williams, one of the most level heads on this council in District 8, saying, I'll support it because I want to give it a chance. I don't support it because I'm a firm believer in it.
I think he had great reluctance about it. I know, but you know, I think it's that kind of situation. They're you know, when we have businesses moving to the San Antonio, I mean, the city leaders are encouraging them, move downtown, don't move to the north side. They want, you know, when people relocate to San Antonio.
But that isn't even the trend in other cities. I mean, I've heard some businesses this week on Wall Street saying, you know, with this Occupy thing, it's the last straw. We don't need to be on Wall Street. We could do what we do in the suburbs, in a strip mall, for a fraction of the price. That's where our employees mostly live. They don't live in the inner city. I mean, if we're such a modern, young, youthfully led, forward-thinking city, where is this coming from?
Again, I think it's trying to it's imagining what, you know, I think the SA 2020 process was very much a part of this. We want this, or our city leaders want the city to become one type of thing, and we are now going to create projects that will take us in that direction rather than addressing the needs that currently exist.
Well, the genesis behind it, Henry Munoz, he's a urban planner, and he was head of the VIA board.
Right.
And I think he has this idea about revitalizing their urban corridor. You need to look at what other communities have done. He looks at Austin, he looks at San Francisco, and he looks at these communities that everybody think is much more cosmopolitan than San Antonio. My approach is look at the ridership in those communities on this, and it would not be justified from a business model.
All right, we're back with more Gang of Four. It's 10:55, the news and talk of San Antonio, 550 KTSA. Hey, Jack Riccardi page of KTSA.com is where you see our podcasts, our video podcasts. You can also find out how to enter and win your way into Dave Ramsey's Entree Leadership Master Series. All the details, KTSA.com, presented by Generations Federal Credit Union and Miles Gold and Silver. It's 11 o'clock on KTSA San Antonio. Boy, he'll just keep on going if you let him. All right. He's only got one thing on his mind, that Joe Sobel. So, Karen, we're being warned now that there will be cyber scams in the wake of the killing of Muammar Gaddafi. Well, people are going to be offering, like, I guess, souvenirs. Yeah. And you're urged not to. I know how you are. You're gonna be watching late at night. You're gonna, after the Ron Popeil infomercial, you're gonna want the hair, the little vial of blood. By the way, they said they froze him. Like where? A commercial freezer. Wow. I hope they wrapped him right, because I hate freezer burn on my dictators. I hate when that happens.
You get your deer head next to Muammar. Which one do I take to the taxidermy?
Lyle Larson, you're the hunter, the outdoorsman. I mean, what do they need to do here?
Well, obviously, if you're going to mount an animal, you freeze it, you wrap it in a towel, and then you take it back to the taxidermist. But I think that, like you said, you don't want a freezer burn dictator. There's probably a better way of disposing of him. I think
this is making that little trip off the aircraft carrier that Bin Laden took look pretty good, actually.
And that's probably what they should have done. They should have quickly taken him out to sea, and then you take away all of what we're seeing on TV today. Everybody speculating when the burial is going to take place. I think it's also respecting the religion. I think there's a protocol within 24 hours that you bury the body. But if you do it out at sea, then there's no tampering with the body in the future.
Too late. It's already been tampered with. We've seen the videos. Those videos are something else, huh? This is unbelievable. All right, on our Gang of Four today, Gilbert Garcia from Plaza TX.com, and the author of a book that will come out in January about the 1976 election and how Ronald Reagan's political career, which was almost ended in '76, was resurrected by his surprise victory in the Texas primary. The name of the book is
Reagan's Comeback.
Reagan's Comeback. Also with us today, Carlos Abelar is a good friend of our show, a listener, a blogger, one of our JR poll voters. People always say, hey, why don't you have one of your listeners on Gang of Four once in a while? So here he is. So far, so good, right?
So far, so good.
So, okay, he's still alive.
No, dude's doing good. They really are.
They haven't bloodied him yet. And Lyle Larson is a state representative and former city council and former county commissioner. Lyle, on a scale of 1 to 10, how inevitable is Mitt Romney? With 10 being the most and 1 being the least.
I think he's an 8.
He's an 8?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think so. I just, if you look at the way that the election's going, he has consistently been in the top 2. I mean, you've had folks...
He's also been consistently really low, right? I mean, we're talking like 25%. He's not able to get above 25% of the polls.
I think with just the sheer number of candidates that are in the race, when they start breaking to the fence, I think that a number of folks will break his direction, and then whoever that other candidate is, whether it be Ron Paul or whether it be Herman Cain or Rick Perry or whoever the other candidate is, I think that that's when we're going to have a better idea. I still think that he's the brightest mind that we've got from a party standpoint.
Why do we get the feeling, though, the Republicans are really settling for Romney? It reminds me a lot of the way Democrats settled on Kerry in 2004. It made sense, but there was no enthusiastic buy-in. They weren't loving the guy. They just figured this is probably the best we can do.
He's overexposed. If you look at it, he's been running for 6 years, and I think he's overexposed. And I think the whole excitement from Herman Cain, Rick Perry, he was new. They're on the scene. They have different ideas, and I think in one respect, Ron Paul's overexposed too. So people were fascinated with this concept of a leader that came out of nowhere. And that's where we got our existing president. Didn't know a lot about him. He could speak very well, and then all of the reality set in, and now we're dealing with the consequences of that. Mm-hmm. So I would rather have somebody fully vetted, you know what you're buying, versus having someone that shows up, is a flash, and then we have the election cycle.
You got to say, I mean, whatever you say about Mitt Romney, fully vetted, seems very intelligent, very well spoken. There's nothing apparently wrong with him, except this. We have had essentially a president for almost 4 years now with truly revolutionary ideas about economic redistribution of wealth, the size and the role of government in our lives. And we don't need someone who is just going to try to take us back to 2008. And when I hear Mitt Romney, I hear a guy who seems to believe that what needs to be fixed is Obama. But actually, I think we have to go much further back than that. Our problems began before Barack Obama.
You know, I tend to have a different view on how revolutionary Obama's ideas are. You know, as we was talked about during the debate this week, you know, Newt Gingrich talked about an individual mandate for health care. You know, if you go back to Nixon, he was talking about the need for comprehensive health care, and obviously Mitt Romney did something like that in Massachusetts. And you know, a lot of I've talked about this before on the show, but I mean, I think a lot of the frustration that people feel with Obama, I mean, he's getting a lot of frustration from the left. A lot of people think that he's been kind of a gutless centrist. You know, I know people on the right don't see it that way, but the thing with, I still see it as a Perry Romney race. I think Perry has a shot. He's obviously damaged himself very much, but I just don't think that Herman Cain's going to make it as a viable contender. I think I get kind of a Ross Perot sort of feeling about him, that he's like shooting from the hip a lot. He's not really well prepared, and I think he had a very bad debate this week. And Rick Perry was overly aggressive, but I think he showed some fight, which he needed to do. And with all the money he's got, the big problem for Perry is that you don't get that second chance to make a first impression. And you know, in the same way that Dan Quayle made a poor first impression and in a way never recovered from that, I think Rick Perry will. You know, the nation really didn't know Rick Perry until 2 months ago, and he's got to combat that first impression.
Well, what I was trying to get at with Romney is, I'm not putting the blame for everything on Obama. Quite the opposite. Obama's the symptom of decades of thinking. And you mentioned Nixon. I mean, Nixon created the EPA. Republicans have to remember that it was a Republican president that gave us this EPA they hate so much. Right. But I think what I'm saying is, Romney, Carlos, seems to regard his job, if he becomes president, as undoing the Obama agenda. But we had the Bush agenda. We've had years of errors in thinking about economics, about individual liberties. You have to go back much further than 2008 if you're really going to address that, and you have to, in essence, be your own kind of revolutionary. You have to be somebody with big ideas, bold ideas. And Romney is the opposite of that. He's very safe. He's very careful. You get the idea that a Romney presidency would have no big surprises in it.
I think a bold idea is to cut $1 trillion in your first year as president. Ron Paul has put some specifics out on stuff like that. And I think you're right. I think it's also more of, the country has been taught to think that way, whether it be Democrats, Republicans, left, right, conservative, liberal. We've been put in this wrestling match. But
so it would take an extraordinary person to reverse that amount of and that length of time.
But it wouldn't just also be the person. It would be that the conscience of the country has turned that way. I mean, everybody always says, they ask Ron Paul, how can you get those cuts? Well, the way he replies is that if I ever become president, that means that the people are turning to that way of thinking. Therefore, I can't, because politicians just want to get reelected. Therefore, they'll change to reflect the will of the people.
Is it possible that therefore that we're really only ready for Romney, that right now, after 4 years of having Obamacare jammed down the throat, of almost having cap and trade, of having these stimulus bills, maybe people want a breather presidency? Is that what Romney represents? Kind of steady hand?
Yeah. I think he's somebody who would tinker with the nuts and bolts of government, but not radically reform the way it functions. I think the thing is that when you see a lot of the polls, you see I mean, I don't know what the exact numbers are, but you often see that a majority of people really want to see some sort of solution in the middle with both sides kind of working it out. And I know that's not what Ron Paul would advocate, but I think that's what people are wanting now. And I think Romney might be somebody who would be able to do something like that.
I think that right now with the $13 trillion in debt and $1.5 trillion debt in this budget, we have to have something radical. And I think that's why you're seeing the 999 plan. You're talking about Perry's going to spend $10-15 million talking about a flat tax. They're looking in Ron Paul talking about cutting 5 federal agencies and gutting them. I think that's what the Tea Party folks want, and I think the conservative. But
why then are you giving Romney an aid in terms of inevitability?
Well, just looking at the landscape, he's been in one or two position all the way through it. It's the political aspect of it. There are features of each of these candidates that I think resonates with all of the folks that are supporting either conservative or independent voters. I like the flat tax. I've always thought that was the best concept that we've had, and the element of cutting 5 federal agencies, that's a good concept. If you could put several of these ideas together and move in as a candidate, I think that the people will receive it well, understanding the hardships. In Texas, if you look at cutting $15 billion out of our budget, it's unheard of in state governance that you would make those kind of cuts, and understanding that you're going to have impacts in education and Medicaid or the healthcare delivery system. That's what needs to take place at the federal level. And I think Perry's attractiveness to the voter is what we did in Texas allowed him to take that, and that was the template that you'd use in Washington. It's not Perry. It's not Romney's. I don't think it's Romney's. His nomination at this point. I think that there's someone else that if they get all of the package put together and they get out and start selling, I think that Perry's probably got as good a chance as anybody to win. The good part about it is we're at the end of the debates, and the focus, and so the focus is going to be more on the advertising.
Well, no, there's still a lot more Republican debate. There's like 12 more of them.
Oh, is there? Well, I think that he's going to start launching his air wars, and they're going to tear Romney down for his health care plan, his inconsistencies.
Can I ask you about that? Why are Republicans so fixated on that? Isn't it clear that any one of these people, hell, probably even a Democrat if they somehow got by Obama in the primaries, isn't it clear that Obamacare will be in the crosshairs of the next president? I mean, I have no doubt that any of these people would do whatever they could do, whatever was politically doable given the makeup of Congress, to repeal Obamacare. So why are they devouring each other over Romney?
Because it equates him to Obama. I mean, he pushed the health care plan.
But if you believe he's your strongest guy, then why eat him cannibalistically before the election? You're going to need a strong, persuasive guy in there, right? I mean, you're going to want your best guy.
Well,
to fight
Ronald Reagan, the 11th commandment is "Thou shalt not attack another Republican." Obviously, that's off the table right now, and we've had more friendly primaries in the past. This one, you've got a lot of ambitious people, you got a lot of money, and there's a lot on the line.
Is part of it also, Gilbert, that they sense a real vulnerability? I mean, this is one of those rare moments when an incumbent president looks like he's going down.
Yeah.
So the politeness factor goes out the window because, hey, this is my chance to be president.
This is the year. Yeah, I think that's it. And I mean, you know, I think Rick Perry bringing up the Mitt Romney having undocumented workers at his property.
It's a 5-year-old story.
Yeah, I mean that. How relevant is that really? And do we really think that's gonna tell us anything about Mitt Romney as president? Not really. But so there's that kind of aggressiveness at work. I think some Republicans could make the case that if we're going to nominate this person, is he going to be vulnerable against Obama because Obama can answer that the biggest and most emotional criticism against Obama is on the health care plan. And if Obama is in a position where he can say, but look what you did, and you said it was a model for the country, there may be some Republicans who are just, who are standing back and looking, this could put us in a vulnerable position next November.
Yeah, I mean, I'm worried about Romney against Obama in a debate where the debate's going to be about either Obamacare or Romney. I mean, is anybody at the grassroots going to be excited about trying to go campaign for Romney? I know I'm not going to be excited about someone like that. So, I mean, it's a real problem to nominate someone that's it's their turn, or that they're good politically because they can talk a big game and can be on prime time. But I don't think that's going to get people out knocking on doors. And it might, because most politicians or the electorate deals in identity politics, where they identify with that's our guy, and they identify with that's the enemy, this is our guy. Yeah. But I think this should be a campaign of philosophy, and unfortunately, I don't know if we're going to get that.
All right, it's 11:25 on the News and Talk of San Antonio, 550 KTSA. We're going to get the headlines from Karen Klaus, come back with the lightning round on 550 KTSA.
Yeah, don't you think they would call less?
It's 11:30 on 550 KTSA. Gang of four today: Lyle, Larson, Gilbert, Garcia, Carlos Abelar. ABC News is just reporting now on their website that in a few minutes, President Obama will announce the complete, immediate withdrawal of U.S. troops from Iraq. That this will in fact happen within 60 days. It will draw down the number of U.S. troops in Iraq to 0. The White House says the president spoke via secure video conference with Iraqi Prime Minister al-Maliki earlier today to tell him of his decision. This seems like a very out-of-nowhere announcement. So, first of all, your reaction to it as you're hearing it for the first time.
I mean, I just think, why now? And it feels kind of like I was going to say it feels like a political...
You hate to be cynical,
yeah,
but this is like, okay, bus tour didn't work. What's the next thing I have on the list?
What's next?
Yeah, it seems to be hasty. I mean, it's not well thought out. It's probably politically motivated. You think of Guantanamo Bay, we're going to be out in 1 year after I'm elected. I wonder exactly how he's going to facilitate a dialogue with all of the NATO alliance and get their folks out as quickly. I think it's all political.
Well, I mean, it's hasty in the sense that we're just hearing about it, but on the other hand, Carlos, how long have we been there? 8 years.
I think it's great if it's true, but if he's just going to move them to other countries, then overall it's not a net plus. I mean, I'd rather see these troops come back to their families here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Are you suspicious that he will use them elsewhere? We're sending troops to Uganda.
I mean, maybe that's the start of a new adventure, so until we start seeing troops and seeing videos of families reuniting with their families, troops with their families, I'll wait to see.
What does this do? I mean, politically, Iraq is not, I don't think that even came up in the debate this week. I mean, what does this do for him? Does this maybe, Gilbert, shore up more support with his left-wing base? This is what they've been waiting for. Maybe the Occupy crowd, this is probably the best news he could give them on the short term.
Yeah, it really hasn't been on people's minds, but it's it's something that he could, I think, would shore up some support with his base. And like I said, I think it's somewhat of an irony, but I think that the president who came in with no foreign policy experience, I think the part of his record that he probably has the most support from the public on is, is dealing with international affairs, with Libya and bin Laden and so on. And so maybe he's just looking at this as this, things are not going well on the domestic front, and I can bolster my image this way.
It was a campaign promise. He was going to pull all the troops out of Iraq. He said that when he was elected, and he probably realizes that we're in a political season and that he needs to make good at least on one of his political promises. So a 60-day withdrawal, you've got to understand the consequences of that, the destabilizing aspect of it. If your security forces in Iraq are prepared to assume all of the roles that the American troops are involved in, also, does it, I think you would be better off if you withdrew them without an announcement like this, because you could accelerate the amount of attacks on American interest in Iraq, just because they can say, see, we're the ones that repelled them. So I don't know if this is the best approach to withdrawing from a country.
I certainly think we should have been done there a long time ago. I would never argue that we should stay any longer than we already have. And I might agree with you that the way to leave is to first leave and then announce that you're done. But on the other hand, his opponents can't have it both ways. If they're going to say we shouldn't be doing nation building, then he's going to say, well, okay, then we're going to stop nation building in Iraq. It's a win-win announcement, although the timing of it is obviously very suspect. This is what ABC put on their political blog. Sources tell ABC News that the president will announce today that U.S. troops in Iraq will draw down to zero by the end of the year. They say here approximately 11:30. It's now 11:35, so we think probably about 11:45 done. This announcement will come. And they mentioned the video conference with the Iraqi Prime Minister. The first indication that something was up was the abrupt cancellation of another event at the White House that was supposed to happen today. It was canceled at the last minute. That tipped off reporters that something may be going on, and this is the something that's going on. When that happens, we'll bring you that as a live event, the president speaking from the White House here on 550 KTSA. Let me just ask you guys a couple of other quick questions. This week, the Gallup survey, for the first time, found over 50% support in the public for legalizing marijuana. This is the record high response in all the years that Gallup, going back to 1969, has been asking this question. Back then, only 12% of Americans favored it, 84% opposed. Now it's up over 50% for the first time. Why would that be? Is that just the demographics changing?
I think, and I would have almost expected this to have happened years ago. I mean, you're looking at the baby boomer generation. You're talking about people basically like 65 and under, and I think a pretty high percentage of people 65 and under have tried it and don't have the sort of fears about it, and maybe the unreasonable worries about it that previous generations had. I think it's just that the society is now comfortable with the idea.
Did they poll the Occupy Wall Street?
No, it was a little broader.
Are you sure?
It was a little broader than that. It was a little broader than that. All right, who says they can't get anything done in Washington? The Senate moved with swiftness this week to overturn an Obama administration rule that was going to limit to 2 times a week the frequency with which potatoes could be served on the school lunch menu. Senators were outraged, particularly senators from potato-producing states, at the idea that you would limit American children to only 2 servings of potatoes a week. A better question would be, how did we get to the point where the Senate is setting the freaking school lunch menu for our kids in their local public school? How did we get to that point?
Well, the state of Texas, the Department of Agriculture has some oversight on that, and they work with the school districts looking at the nutritional intake of the children. So I think Washington, again, focus on what you need to focus on. They need to start cutting budgets and get away from the crap that's going on.
Debating potatoes in the school lunch menu.
Tater tots coming up.
Oh, boy, don't even start.
Yeah.
And we couldn't leave without a Joe Biden moment, our favorite Joe Biden moment of the week. Don, this is cut 6. He's on the campaign trail. He's selling this new jobs plan, the stimulus, and he's saying, if you're against this, you must be for an increase in the crime rate. Listen to Joe Biden. Pull on your headphones, listen to this.
It's not temporary. There's a gun pointed at his head. The cop shows up and he's not killed. That's not temporary. That's horrible. Give me a break. Temporary.
The 200-pound man standing over you telling you to submit sounds a little kinky, but the rest of it, look, first of all, when do the cops show up in the middle of a rape? Does that happen all that often?
Yeah, usually it's afterwards.
I mean, maybe if we hired enough of them in Joe Biden's mind, it would. But I have to say, it sounds to me like desperation time. If you've got this guy who's famous for going off the script, you've unleashed him, you've basically said to him, go do whatever you think you need to do, and this is the pitch. I mean, this is the oldest, most old-fashioned big government thinking. I can remember as a kid hearing people say this. Oh, if we don't do this, if we don't vote these people in, if we don't pass this budget, children will die, women will die, the criminal will run rampant. I mean, this is what passes for their new strategy.
Jack, isn't it true that even with all the economic problems we've been having, that actually crime numbers are actually down? Isn't that
not in his universe?
Okay. Because I know that people want to make this kind of correlation, but I don't think that's been.
Yeah, when you resort to fear tactics in politics, obviously you've hit the wall, and I think that's what he's exercising. I heard that rant a couple of days ago when he went off, and I was trying to look at the connectivity between what he was saying and the jobs program and how he was rationalizing that the Republicans, for whatever reason, were facilitating more crime in the country if they didn't support this initiative.
Well, it also kind of exposes, Carlos, the fact that the stimulus dollars didn't just go to create any jobs. They were for union jobs. So you'll notice that they're always talking about police, fire, teachers. It's always unionized workforces. So it's really just a giveaway to the unions.
Yeah, and it was obvious in that clip that he's playing to the crowd. But since he's been
the crowd's not getting it.
But since he's been in the Senate for so long, that might have worked 20,
right.
30 years ago.
Maybe that's it.
So he's just keeping it old school, I guess.
Yeah. The silence from the audience is almost stunned silence, though. You know, it's a very partisan audience, and even they have like the wind knocked out.
Yeah, I think that would have been really an extreme argument in any era. I really do. I mean, it was.
I think both Biden and Obama need to invest in a very large applause machine, because obviously both of them struggled this week getting an applause.
Hey, did they ever find the stolen teleprompter and podium? Is that, I forget, did that ever turn out? Did they solve the crime?
I think it was in the van with the Moroccan guys.
There you go. The Moroccan guys took it. All right. Carlos has the line in the morning.
All right.
All right, Carlos. Good job on Gang of Four today. I hope you'll come back and be with us again and keep calling in. And we like having you be a part of the show.
I'd like to be back.
All right. We want you back. And Gilbert, we want you back. And Lyle, Larson, we want you back. Gentlemen, thank you very much. It's 11:41. Continuing coverage of this impending announcement from the White House about withdrawing troops from Iraq. Let's get all the headlines now from Karen Klaus.